It's important that we put the focus on one of India's most buzzing themes globally, the startups of India. And right here on the panel are people associated with this booming startup ecosystem. Let's face it, last year, India overtook UK to become the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, ladies and gentlemen, with more than 1 lakh registered startups with India's Startup India mission. Big round of applause for that. India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, beating the United Kingdom. And it was also the year where there were many headlines about, is there a funding winter? Are startups in India getting enough funding? Are people willing to fund? Are startups in India doing things the right way? Because so many startups in the headlines for all the wrong reasons also. But then again, another year in which stellar startups went to list themselves on stock exchanges with blockbuster listings, right? Startups which listed on Indian stock exchanges became multi-bagger stocks. You know, the news goes back and forth. But the problem here is that the word startup is a new terminology. We here in India have been doing startups for a very, very long time. Startups from the grassroots level, from a very long time. So we're going to be discussing all of that. We're not going to be getting stuck on these terminologies called startups. We're talking about businesses. Individuals who are starting businesses and going on to become great success stories to inspire Indians and to inspire the world. So I'm going to start with the oldest startup on this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Mr. Jayant Mehta, Managing Director of Amul. Who here does not have Amul butter? Who knows any other butter apart from Amul? Let's start it from there, actually. You know, this is not, it's just a joke. I mean, this is a company which began at the grassroots level. It was a tier 2 startup back in the day. And today we're talking about how venture capitalists in India are actively funding tier 2 and tier 3 startups. It still feels like a startup, Mr. Mehta, with your innovations, with your fresh energy, with every product launch, competing with the global giants entering the Indian market. Do you still think and work like a startup?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having a Dudhwala on the show. I was just wondering in this elite panel, how do I get featured? Then I did my little bit of investigation. I tried to find out who is the anchor of this show. And I found he's Krishna. So with Krishna himself there, Doodh aur Makhan to hona hi hai. And that was grateful for making me here talk about the Amul startup story. As you are right, Amul started in 1946 with just 2 village cooperative societies and 250 liters of milk. And this model has grown leaps and bounds. Today, we are doing a turnover of 80,000 crores, which is $10 billion, 36 lakh farmers, 18,600 villages, and you know the number of products and the dairy plants and all that we have. So this is where it's a demonstration of a power of collective. Small marginal farmers coming together, most of them women, all getting into a startup mode with owning of 2, 4, 6 cows or buffaloes, using the power of a cooperative model to collect milk, which is one of the most perishable agricultural products in the country, which spoils in just 3 to 4 hours. You collect this milk from across the large geography of our country, particularly Gujarat in our case. And more importantly, when countries make brands, and people talk about brands, they say America has great brands, Japan has great brands. Here it's this model which led to India becoming the largest producer of milk in the world. So the replication of model from Gujarat to across the country, 200,000 villages, members of the cooperatives, which has more than 1.7 crore families, and this is what makes a lot of difference. And what results is also not just nutrition for 1.4 billion people like us as citizens, but also livelihood to 10 crore families. So this is what a cooperative implemented in the right way, connecting the producer with the consumer, focus on the access to the market, remunerative price to the producer, which means you spend 100 rupees on Amul, 85 rupees goes back to the farmer, and delighting the customer with a variety of value-added products, which will make both consumers happy and the producers.
Everything you just said, I can see Ghazal just like nodding along, because that just sounds like a new age startup, doesn't it?
It's a source of inspiration for me. I would listen to each and every word that
So
Sir
from the
says.
oldest startup, the reason why I'm going to Ghazal is that from the oldest startup on this panel to the newest startup on the panel. Ghazal, talk to us about Mama.
So Mama Earth is just 7 years old. We started in 2016. We took the company public last year, so that has been the long and the short journey of it. I think, you know, what has worked in our favor has been the startup ecosystem that we are talking about, right? The country is placed at a position right now where the world is taking a note of what we are doing. And I think for us, this small brand which started as a personal problem where a mother was trying to solve, you know, the problem of finding the right kind of natural toxin-free products for her child. And that leading to becoming a business where now we have not just one brand, which is Mama Earth, but 6 brands that we have crafted in 7 years. I think that's the beauty of the startup ecosystem here in India. And yeah, we are just getting started. So like Sir said, it is such a long journey of any startup that exists. We've just taken our first step, and we are aiming to take iBeauty, which is the India beauty, to the world through our company.
Well, 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 we are at the News 9 Global Summit. We're taking India to the world with the News 9 Global Summit. We want what better people than Ghazal Alag who are taking iBeauty, Indian beauty to the world. I'm just going to take this across to No Broker because the reason is that you come under the classic definition of the term startup. Yes. A technology-enabled product meant for urban Indians. And the reason why I'm talking to you is that we just spoke to Mr. Mehta. When it comes to scaling up and sustaining, Amul is like an epitome of scaling up and sustaining. And sustaining is not the right word. Scaling up and, you know, breaking through all barriers and dominating, world domination. Scaling up and world domination is what Amul does. Tell us, from No Broker's perspective, it's a very, very important need gap that you fill with No Broker. An extremely consumer-centric service. Talk to us, what is your mantra when it comes to scaling up and sustaining No Broker?
First of all, thanks for having us, and really inspiring to be in panel with somebody like who has been running Amul. For No Broker, I think it's again, as Ghazal said, it was out of our problem. So when we were looking for houses, we realized that for a very little value what a broker is adding, we are paying atrociously high intermediation cost, which goes up to 18% for a rental of 11 months. And that's when we said, रोटी कपड़ा और मकान, ये 3 चीजें हैं, ये essential हैं. मकान में कोई कुछ नहीं कर रहा है, रोटी और कपड़ा में फिर भी startup है. And that's when we thought कि जैसे technology is the way technology is revolutionizing all other startups, all other sectors, why can't we have something which can remove intermediary and add value with the use of technology? And with that simple mantra, we started. We thought we'll just do the rentals. We will help people buy house, get houses on rent, and we will save brokerage for them, which is like 20-25,000 rupees each side. And as in when we started doing it, the kind of love, we realized that there is no brand in real estate. This is a trust deficit economy. India mein har aadmi, they are scared of doing a real estate transaction because they really don't have anybody who can help them with this particular thing. So No Broker came up as a trusted entity in the real estate transaction. And as the path happened, as the time flies, we realized that this problem is not only for the rental, it is there for buying, it is there for selling. And when we had the customer trust like Amul has, we said, okay, what else our customer needs? And that's when we realized that a customer needs cleaning services. They need to move when they have found the houses. They need to have the legal assistance when they are buying the houses. They need to manage their societies with the technology. So No Broker started almost 9 years back, and now we are present in top 6 cities in India. By far the largest PropTech company in India, the only unicorn out of India. And it's a long, long journey. So we take inspiration from Amul. So we have just started. So these guys are the oldest startup, and we will want to be the oldest real estate startup in India at some point of time.
You know, I can't think, you know, yours is a brand where the brand name is the tagline, No Broker. You say that, and then people are like, yeah, I want to try that. Exactly. Where can I go do something where there is no broker, where there's no middleman involved? So it's fascinating. Great name for a product. I mean, it's easy to say Mama Earth, what a beautiful name for a product and a brand. But then again, no broker is also a beautiful name for a product, for a service. I'm going to come to the other part of this. In the introduction, I was talking about great stories, great startups, fantastic. But the year 2023, if you read anything about startups anywhere, online or on TV, anything, it's all about no funding. Funding levels are back to 2017, if I'm not mistaken. Sushma, so the thing is that they say there's a funding winter. But you go and talk to venture capitalists, they'll say, what funding winter? There's enough and more money chasing the right ideas and the right startups. But the fact of the matter is that the numbers tell a different story. 2022, we crossed over 100 unicorns in this country. 2023, we barely had 2. Zepto and Incred. That's all. Something happened in 2023. Are we looking at a turnaround in 2024? What is happening in the fundings area as far as Indian startups are concerned?
Thanks so much for having me here today. And, it looks like I'm in the minority when it comes to capital discussions in the startup ecosystem. But Krishna,
very important minority.
Very important. No, but if we ask Ghazal, she'll tell you there was no funding winter when she went for IPO, right? It was
not for her. Not for her. We're not talking about her.
Not for her. But it's just an indicator of the kind of capital that is available in India today, right? There are close to 70 private equity VC funds that have raised over $15 billion of dry powder that they're sitting on to deploy in 2023. And foreign direct investments is close to $70 billion last year, right? So there's clearly a lot of capital that is available in the ecosystem. But don't look at it as just the capital that is available. Let's take a step back and see what happened in 2021, 2022. There was a lot of easy money that was flowing around, right? And it was a factor of multiple things. It was the macro conditions, interest rates were lower, money was easy, right? And all that easy money went into funding a lot of things. Some good startups, some great startups, right? And when you are trying to fund innovation, like No Broker, when it started, it was not a playbook that everyone had seen and known. They had to innovate as they went along. That requires money, right? And that is what this startup innovation is funding. And you have to give it some leeway that, yes, there will be mistakes, but great businesses will come out of this. And so that is what happened in the last few years. What you're seeing today is a pause. People want to sit back and see where that money is going. Are these going to go from good to great businesses, or are they going to go from good to dud businesses? You'll win some, you'll lose some, but I think some great businesses are going to come out of this.
It's like a test match, right? Like one session you will be ahead, one session will be behind. Eventually you have to win the test match in 4 days. And hopefully India is going to wrap this up as quickly as possible for the day. But I'm going to ask Vijay and Mehta, there's a lesson over there. When money comes, when money comes to scale up a business, tell us, and also money goes into technology. Just because you describe yourself as a dudwala doesn't mean there is so much of technological integration that goes into Amul and developing brand Amul and all the products of Amul. Talk to us about how do you take in funds and you deploy funds for everything from technology to distribution.
I think you made a very important point, and connecting with what my fellow panelists have been telling. There are many things which get into making a great business. But for the farmer, end of the day, and this is one thing which I have practiced and we believe in, is money makes milk. So that's where you have to connect and find out what matters most. And to do that, you have to do everything what it takes to make the business very efficient and very, very cost effective. And that's where technology comes in and plays a very big role. Ever since the early days, I mean, we talk about AI, and we talked about a session here which was talking about AI, but dairy industry has been practicing AI since a long time, because the productivity comes out of the AI that we do, and that's artificial insemination. But that's how we improve the breed of the cattle, improve the productivity, and more money for the producer. That is the best part of deployment of technology, using the best bulls, getting the best semen, using AI at the field, and helping improve the productivity of the cattle. In the next 10 years, today India is producing say 1/4 of the total milk in the world. In the next 10 years, it will be 1/3 of the total milk in the world. So we have a chance to be the dairy to the world. But that doesn't mean you will have extra cattle to do that. So with the same cattle, with better productivity, you're able to deliver that. So breeding, feeding, more importantly, the processes of collection of milk, using sophisticated testing equipments, fat, SNF, adulteration at the village level, to using the best technology to process milk, launching a variety of products, using a distribution network to take care of the requirements for the customer, going direct to customers like her. I mean, though a legacy distribution house with more than 1 million directly serviced retail outlets, 20,000 distributors, 85 branch offices, for new products, we say going direct to customer also is a way forward, and think and learn and work like a startup. So this is where a complete cow to consumer, a fully integrated tech IT company, every single transaction for each of the 36 lakh farmers, twice a day is recorded on a common software, in form an app which the farmer can see, an SMS of a transaction like we do banking transactions, to on Google you can see every single outlet which sells Amul product.
Wow.
So this is where the technology comes in, cost effectiveness comes in, and that's how you succeed, because you pass on the largest share of the consumer's rupee to the producer. And believe me, when I say more than 85% goes back to the producer, use an international benchmark. In Europe, in US, in Australia, New Zealand, any developed country of the world, producer gets only 1/3 share of a consumer's dollar or a euro or a pound. So this is where all the factors come in, and you have to see the harmony in all of this to make it happen.
Wow. How many of us knew that Amul doodh that we get, the butter that we get, the amount of technology that goes into procuring that milk and making it, churning it into butter? He's talking about globally how only 1/3 of the cost goes to the farmers. That's why farmers in Europe are protesting. We have delegates here from Europe over here. Farmers across Europe are protesting. About how enough money doesn't come. They're throwing the milk on the floors. Not here in India. And even if there are protests, we deal with them very, very well. Not the problem over here. But the question over here is that, Ghazal, you're looking at how technology is integrated, but here you are, a new age brand who did the opposite of Amul. Amul went to the stores first and made sure that the product was available in the physical stores. Your product was available online first, and now in your next stage of development, you're talking about the physical presence of your product in stores. Talk to us, how was this transition? First, marketing it directly online, taking the bull by the horn. We are in a social media age. How did you do that? And how do you now turning away from that for a physical presence of your products in stores?
So very interesting. I think I would start by saying that for us at Mamaearth, it was not an option. It was more a necessity. We did not have any kind of experience or large amount of money to directly target offline stores. And what we realized very early on was, when you're in an offline shop, there are 500 different brands who've kept their products. For a consumer to walk in and for you to grab consumers' attention to say, you know what, I'm the new child on the block, check me out, it's very difficult unless you spend a lot of money which shouts out visibility, which shouts out attention, breaking spanners, and the amount of money that you need to do that in just one store and multiply it by, even if you want to start with just one city, was way high than what we could fathom. On the other hand, technology actually has been a very, very inherent part of us growing up till today. Not just, it started with direct to consumers, where we realized that sitting anywhere in the world, just from one location, one warehouse, you can actually target consumers pan-India, seek their interest, show them your product, and then get them to consider buying you, right? That's where we started from. And the amount of money that you needed for that was far less compared to, and I could target consumers pan-India, whereas physically I was just able to target at best one small location in Delhi, and then possibly expand to different clusters and go from there, right? So it wasn't an option. It was more of the only channel that we understood really well.
But who said doing it on social media is easy? That's also as crowded as it gets. To get mind space and attention with your online advertising, is also a big challenge, isn't it?
But we did that ourselves. Varun and I did that ourselves. It's all about content and the end of it, right? To grab attention. So from the content that goes out on the labels of the products, to how the product will look, to what the ad will say. Most importantly, one insight that we understood was, and because I was a new mother, I was trusting other mothers more than I was trusting brands, because brands didn't listen. While my fellow mothers listened, heard, suggested, and then even
Target
after
consumer.
that, absolutely right. And that was the insight that we picked up, that if mothers trust other mothers, this is a brand that is being started by a mother. And it started with an insight that we are going to be a beauty and personal care brand which is going to listen to you, craft products basis your needs, deliver to you, and then also take feedback. So the cycle doesn't end once you've bought our product. It actually continues beyond that for the next 6 months, where we are just seeking feedback on how we are doing. That holds true for us still today. And I think that was the 2 or 3 things which helped us gain that attention from our consumers, and we sort of moved
You're
forward.
literally giving the playbook away on stage. You're literally, for all those
Almost
watching,
there.
that's how you build a brand from scratch in today's online age. I'm going to quickly come to Akhil. The thing is that we are at a time when, as Sushma was telling us, there is no time, there's no shortage of money. If you need money, there is money, there is money that's going to come in. The reason I'm asking you is that when it comes to deployment of that money, yours is a fully tech product. It's not about tech integration. It is a full-on tech product. But tell us, how do you do it when it comes to deploying money and scaling up in a sustainable way? Because of so many startups being found fault with for not scaling up. First making these big bang announcements and then eventually going back, So tell us, how does No Broker do it?
Sure. So 2 things. So basically, as you rightly said, there's no dearth of money. As Sushma was saying, maybe it's a marathon, we have just taken a pause. And for good companies, money is still available. 10 years back, when we started, ecosystem was very naive in terms of the VCs which were available. It took us 18 months of bootstrapping to raise money. And we almost gave away all the savings, me, Amit and Saurabh, almost all the savings what we had. And then Elevation Capital came in to save us. But
18 months of bootstrapping,
18
wow.
months of bootstrapping. But see, the thing is, one thing fundamentally 3 of us have always believed and done is that we have not been splurging money. So we see, you need to understand which sector you are in. So we are in real estate. We are not a food delivery company where we start offering 50% discount and people will start buying food. So we can't do random marketing. There have been companies in PropTech who have plastered city with the boarding, with the hoardings and the ads, assuming people will start renting house and buying houses. It doesn't happen that way. You need to understand what goes in your industry, how do people react, and what they need. So that's one fundamental which we have taken forward, where we have always believed in solving the customer problem as in when they need it. So in case of No Broker, somebody took a house once, they found without a broker, they saved money. They told 5 other friends of theirs who started using it. Snowballing started happening. They came back after a year or 2. They again rented a house. By then we started selling houses. They bought a house. When they bought a house, they realized that we have home services. They started using our services, which is packers, movers, cleaning, maybe interiors. So it's a long journey, correct? You just, by getting the money, it will not happen, as you rightly said, Krishna, that you just start plaguing city with the ads and you think, okay, making big announcements will get customers to you. It will not happen. Anything which goes up very fast comes down also very fast according to me.
Talk about that.
So it takes time to build long-lasting brands and companies according to me.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to ask you, how do you choose now? How do you choose where to put the money where the mouth is? Because we've seen everything in the Indian startup ecosystem. We've seen great unicorn stories, and let's not forget, we don't make enough unicorns. Considering the market that we have, considering the size of the ecosystem that we have, 100 unicorns is nothing. We have to make tons of unicorns in this country, don't we?
So, Krishna, that's a good question, but I will tread carefully here. For a country like ours, it's not just the unicorns that make us who we are, right? We have 1 lakh startups. Sure, some of them will become your unicorns and they will tread their journey. But we need a lot more solid, scalable, sustainable businesses, not necessarily having the unicorn tag. And for that to happen, I think the entire ecosystem should be careful and should be responsible when you're creating these businesses. And hence, being a responsible investor is what differentiates investors.
How do you do that? Don't just say responsible. Tell us, how do you do it?
Sure. No, it is hard, right? Like one of the hardest things for any investor is to say no. We see close to 100 deals a week. We do 5 deals a year. So there are more no's going out than yes. And hence, obviously there is some AI that happens in our heads as well for us to...
HI, human intelligence.
HI, AI, whatever you want to call it, but that happens all the time. And in spite of that, there are mistakes that happen, right? So that is how difficult the role giving capital out is. And so to be a responsible investor is, at least in my mental model, is people, planet, society. If these 3 things are not negatively impacted, and yet the business is able to show growth, as well as great unit economics, then it's a no-brainer.
All the 3 startups on this panel, the 3 things you mentioned, people, planet, society, all 3 of them, they do all the other. Ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause for all the 3 people over here who contribute positively to people, planet, and society. That's who we have on the startup session over here. And I'm going to take this back to Ghazal and Mr. Mehta. Mr. Mehta, going forward, once upon a time, Amul was fairly alone as far as, being able to push its products over there. How did you do this? How are you still a dominant player when the who's who of, food products majors in the world have entered the Indian market? You still deliver the best prices to the consumers. You still deliver a brand experience. They say, it's all about love that the brand creates for you. You still have that X factor of love from your ad campaigns. I mean, we talk about Apple's ad campaigns and marketing creating love in the hearts of the consumer. Amul, ladies and gentlemen, that is an ad campaign that 4 generations have fallen in love with and continue to fall in love with. The Gen Z is also in love with it. So, from here on, talk to us in terms of dealing and dominating in a competitive marketplace. One thing is to start at a grassroots level and then being able to do it. And the other thing is when the marketplace becomes crowded, becomes extremely competitive. There are bigger players as big as you or bigger than coming into the... How do you deal with that?
You raised 2 very important points. Let's deal with the first one, is the competition. We love competition. For a simple reason that because there is competition, there is more share of noise of that category goes up in the market. And that's where when you as a strong brand and a respected brand gain out of it. You talked about advertising, and that's what demonstrates the power of consistency. You won't believe we spend less than 1% of our turnover on advertising. All private multinationals, and she would be a witness, 5 to 12% on advertising is what they spend. We spend less than 1% of our turnover on advertising.
And yet the most creative,
but it is the consistency in communication, and you can give credit to that 6-year-old Amul girl who makes the brand stay young and touching everybody. We talked about a lot of numbers for Amul, but we internally believe that our currency is not milk. Our currency is trust. And if you have the trust of the customer and the customer knows that he or she is going to get the best quality product at the most affordable price, she is going to buy your product. And that is what is being practiced, and not just talk, but also practiced in every single thing we do, every single work, every single process, every single product. And that is what drives this entire thing.
All right, that's the simple message, and that message rings true across the startups over here and the person who funds startups. It's been a message in unison from all 3 very different startups, and one from another set of, another different ecosystem of funding ecosystem altogether, but the message is the same. Build scalable businesses. India has 1 lakh startups. India needs 2 lakh startups. Scalable businesses, and not 100 unicorns, 200, 300 unicorns or more if it's possible.
Can I talk about the unicorn concept of the cooperatives?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'll take a minute. I spoke about the power of the cooperative model. And fortunately now a new Ministry of Cooperation at the central level came in. The political side of your channel will talk about double engine Sarkar.
Yes.
The business side or the cooperative side is what one needs to top is a double engine Sahakar. Because there is a Ministry of Cooperation at every state, there is a Ministry of Cooperation at the central level, and irrespective of the political colors, the work for the Ministry of Cooperation is to support every single cooperative in the country. This led to formation of 3 new multi-state cooperatives in the last few months. One is multi-state cooperative on exports, second on organics, and third on seeds. We've been the chief promoter of this multi-state cooperative on exports, along with NCDC, NAFED, IFCO, CRIPCO, the top 5 cooperatives of the country. You won't believe that the order book of this multi-state cooperative on exports is more than 15,000 crore rupees.
Wow.
So here, when you say unicorn is $1 billion in dollars in valuation, here there is actually $2 billion in turnover. And nobody even knows about these things. So this is the power of cooperatives being leveraged.
Fair enough, sir.
Amul today is where it is because it got access to the market of Bombay.
Right.
And we are talking 75 years back. Today, if you imagine every single cooperative of the country, every single farmer who is a member of a cooperative gets access to 180 countries market in the world, you can imagine the growth and prosperity of the country and the vision of Honorable Prime Minister and the Minister of Cooperation to actually leapfrog from a developing country to a developed country in the shortest possible time.
Absolutely. And again, unicorns are about valuations. He's talking about $2 billion in turnover. That's what we need to go forward. But I'm afraid we've completely run out of time here on this discussion. Fascinating discussion, ladies and gentlemen. Huge round of applause for all the panelists who have taken time out to share some very important thoughts on building businesses from the grassroots here in India. Thank you, Mr. Jayan Mehta. Thank you, Ghazal Alagh. Thank you, Sushma Kaushik, and Mr. Akhil Gupta. Thank you so much.